What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? Vince Neil of Motley Crue drove drunk and killed one of his very good friends and gave the two people in the other car very bad injuries and brain damage. He also had other DUIs after this. Floyd Mayweather beats his wife with hands that are registered as lethal weapons in front of his children. But because he wins, nobody cares. Jimmy Superfly Snuka killed his girlfriend and got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Kurt Cobain's mother regularly goes on talk shows and interviews where she talks about how supportive she was of Kurt and how she knew how famous he would become from the moment she heard his music. Yup. It's the same mom that abused Kurt and kicked him out multiple times, making him live at his grandparents' friends and sometimes, not confirmed, sleep under a bridge. R. Kelly married Alia when she was 15 years old in the mid-90s, and yet it took like 2 decades for people to start boycotting him as a sexual predator. He was still making songs with Beyonce and Lady Gaga etc. for a long time. Rick James kidnapped 2 women with his wife while on separate crack binges. And he f***ed up Charlie Murphy's couch. Vince Neil was driving drunk and caused a crash that killed his passenger. Ted Nugent shit his pants to dodge the draft and has a song called Jailbait which ends with him pleading with an officer not to arrest him and instead share a 13-year-old. Johnny Cash walked out on his wife and kids saying that his career was more important to him than they were. Then went on to eventually settle down with June Carter and start a whole new family while still ignoring the kids he already had. Boy George. He beat a guy with a metal chain after cuffing him to a radiator. Should make for an interesting sequence in his forthcoming biopic. Steven Tyler became the guardian for a 16-year-old he was dating when he was 25 so he could bring her on tour. Knocked her up too. Piers Morgan was the editor of the Daily Mirror during the Iraq War. Published photos that he knew were fake of American and British troops abusing Iraqi prisoners. George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that a doctor diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors during this time often told patients' relatives of their cancer diagnosis instead of the patient. Especially if the patient was female. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him since he had reached his term limits and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist. But unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this. I'm assuming. Because of all of the other shitty things he did. Her name was Lillian Wallace. For those interested. Jared Leto's been accused of rape by half a dozen 13-15 years old girls. Karl Malone got a 13-year-old pregnant and refused to take care of that child. Drake seems to be ignored for grooming a young underage fan, at age 14, into being his girlfriend until she recently turned 18 this year. And now he's even, supposedly, doing it to a young actress. Gwyneth Paltrow. She's a con artist and manages a MLM. As well as recommending women treat their illness by putting rocks up their vagina and steaming their privates, causing harm to people. You can say she's an idiot. Or just that she's a sociopath that loves making money off hurting other people. Steven Tyler was a serial rapist in the 70s and 80s. Now he's an old woman. In my country there is a TV host that killed several people in a car accident. Twice. It was his fault both times. You can still see him on TV. I mean, it seems to most that Drake is actively grooming young girls, but it seems to be forgotten as soon as new evidence surfaces. Emma Roberts beat the shit out of her then boyfriend Evan Peters. Then continued to co-star in the same show as him. I was looking for this. She left Evan Peters with a bloodied nose and bite marks after some people called the cops on them when they had a fight in their hotel room in Canada. I'm saying this as a woman. It says a lot about how obvious the abuse is that when the cops turn up to a domestic violence case and arrest the woman instead of the man. They continued the date until early this year. Maybe she changed, but if I'm completely honest, I just feel relieved on Evan Peters' behalf. There's a soccer player in Brazil who killed his wife, quartered her body and gave it to dogs eat to make it harder to police found out. He went to jail for a few years and now he is paying again and making tons of money again like nothing happened. Edit. Okay, he is not making a ton of money. What I meant is that he's probably gonna have a pretty comfortable life and have his career back. Also, the woman wasn't his wife. It was his mistress, but they have a children together and still. Creed Bratton has been a leader and a follower of numerous cults. Dr. Dre beat a reporter, D. Barnes, savagely for writing a negative story on him. Or one he perceived as negative. I don't know. He picked her up by her hair and began slamming her head and the right side of her body repeatedly against a brick wall near the stairway as his bodyguard held off the crowd with a gun. After Dre tried to throw her down the stairs and failed. He began kicking her in the ribs and hands. She escaped and ran into the women's restroom. Dre followed her and grabbed her from behind by the hair again and proceeded to punch her in the back of the head. He and Eminem would go on to joke about it as the man who slapped D. Barnes. Dre produced and is featured in rapper Eminem's song Guilty Conscience, in which Eminem references the incident as a humorous put down. Dre reportedly fell out of his chair laughing at it. There was that time James Franco tried to FCK a teenager after she posted the exchange on social media of her telling him how old she was and him not caring and still wanting to see her. All he had to do was go on a few morning talk shows a couple days later and say, "You don't always know who you're talking to online." And everyone instantly forgot about it. He framed it like he was the one who was deceived and people just let it slide even though that clearly wasn't the case. Jerry Seinfeld dated a 17-year-old girl in high school when he was 39 years old. Edit. I know it isn't illegal. He had money, fame, and was at the height of his show. And he chooses to date a 17-year-old who is still in high school? It might not be illegal and as bad as murder, rape, kidnapping etc. But it's still pretty scummy. Funky bass. Seinfeld. So I met someone at the park. George. Do these glasses make my face look fat? Elaine. You met someone? At the park? George. You shouldn't go to the park. Too many panhandlers. Jerry. She wasn't a panhandler. George. Oh. Elaine. The girl at the park. George. I wasn't listening. These glasses. Elaine. So tell me about her. Jerry. Her name is Claudia. She's mumbles. Elaine. What's that? You're mumbling. Jerry. She might have been 17. Elaine. Jerry. High pitched, I didn't know at the time. George. Imagine meeting her parents. It's awkward enough if she was legal aged. Jerry. She is. Kramer bursts in. Audience goes wild. Kramer. That's just great. I'm banned from the Apollo Theater. Can we have a reverse thread? Which celebrity has a clean background? Hugh Jackman seems alright. Bob Ross and Fred Rogers remain two of the most clean and wholesome human beings on the planet. Charlie Sheen once had unprotected sex with his girlfriends, plural, when he has HIV. Do people actually forget how awful Sheen is? Coco Chanel was a Nazi. Tyler Tequila is a Nazi. Andy Dick has sexually assaulted people an absurd amount of times and also got Phil Hartman's wife back into drugs, which led to her murdering Hartman in an intoxicated state. You would think he would have been ruined in the Me Too movement. But apparently we pass it off like that's classic Andy Dick. Edit. To those saying Andy Dick doesn't really get a pass because everyone hates him. He's not in prison, which is where anyone else would end up for doing half the things he did. So I'd call that a huge pass. Will Smith was in YouTube Rewind 2018. I see people still saying great things about Tom Cruise. All the time. Especially on our movies. It's like they forgot he's huge into Scientology. You know. That F-ked up group that locks people up in compounds until they conform. That group that has gotten away with our pay and murder. That group that skirts taxes with their bullshit church status. The group that intimidates and ruins lives that go against them. It's a huge F-kin evil cult. He's a very big part of it. And yet people seem okay with him. Mr. Mossaby from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody killed someone in a drunk driving accident. Edit. Phil Lewis is unlike many of the others on this thread in that he was sincerely remorseful for his actions. The comedy troupe that he created helped spread awareness of the dangers of drunk and reckless driving. And that helped play a role in his reduced sentence. People can change with reflection, introspection, and genuine remorse for their wrongdoings. And he seems like a very good representation of that. For the record, Phil Lewis is very remorseful about what happened. And to this day, he continues to work with drug abuse recovery groups and talk about his experience. Jesus take the PRNDL. Rick James. He and his girlfriend literally kidnapped someone and burned them with their crack pipe and sexually assisted her. But people just want to go Rick James bitch. Edit. To be fair, people say Rick James bitch more because they like Dave Chappelle, not because they're big Rick James fans. Pete Townsend of The Who and Child PRN. Actor and television personality Donald Trump, from The Apprentice and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, has had dozens of pay allegations against him. Has been recorded admitting to taking advantage of women through his celebrity status. Obstructed 2 federal investigations. Has publicly asked another country to help interfere with the 2020 presidential election. Has possibly indulged in a child prostitution ring. Tom Cruise is the celebrity face for a massive cult that kidnaps, rapes, and is likely involved in human trafficking and child marriages. The cult that outlawed the F-King IRS. But yeah, Mission Impossible was cool, I guess. Caitlyn Jenner caused a car crash that killed Kim Howe. Jimmy Kimmel wore blackface and no one said a damn thing. Rob Lowe made a sex tape with a couple of girls. He got F-ked. She had a fake ID and lied about her age. Unlike Don Henley, who knew the prostitute he picked up was a teenager. And literally no one remembers that. Errol Flynn. He went on trial for pay of an underage girl once. And when he was cleared of all charges, the public and fans cheered and had a little girl run up to him and present him with flowers outside of the courthouse. He did all sorts of other scummy things in his lifetime, but his fame kept him away from any type of repercussion until his death. Kobe Bryant the rapist. The category is therapist. Big Bird was caught doing a line of coke off of Gordon's ass. Ben Roethlisberger. Everyone somehow forgets that he paired 2 people. Edit. I get it. Katy Perry and Azul misconduct, I guess it'd be called. The whole Katy Perry thing is so F-ked. 1 minute she's behind the Me Too movement and wants to call out Azul predators. But 2 accusations, plus that time she kissed that kid on American Idol, which was dodgy even at the time, have gone right past her with seemingly no impact whatsoever. Classic case of one rule for them, another rule for me. Matthew Broderick killed 2 women in a car accident caused by gross negligence by driving on the wrong side of the road in Ireland in 1987 and got off with a $175 fine. Natalie Wood was probably murdered by Robert Wagner and witnessed by Christopher Walken. Obama ordered 171 drone strikes in his last year of office after he had won a Nobel Peace Prize. For anyone wondering, that's about 1 explosion every 20 minutes. Non-stop for a year. Ted Kennedy. Chappaquiddick. Mother Teresa is one of the most vilest people in history. The suffering she brought to terminal patients and orphans due to her messed up religious beliefs is ridiculous, and she is worshipped as a saint. Also, there is all the money she raised which wasn't providing medicine, so just lined the pocket of the church and her little sect. Steve Carell promised college tuitions to 3rd graders but didn't fall through to it. In Britain there's a duo called Ant and Dec. Well, Ant nearly f***ing killed a child and her mother in a car crash due to being drunk during midday. Every boy has already forgotten that, although doing that is still his fault. Christopher Columbus. Wasn't Snoop Dogg up for attempted murder before he got famous? He was acquitted. People forgot because the law said he wasn't guilty. That's a bit different. Laura Bush killed a guy. Caitlyn Jenner killed a 60-year-old in her car. But she's famous and rich, so gets away with it. Lena Dunham molested her sister. Ariana Grande blackfishes. Licked some donuts in a store that she never intended to buy. Has alluded to her quinceañera and implies she is Latina when she's white. Nicki Minaj is currently dating a registered sex offender. He served time in prison for raping a 16-year-old at gun and knife point. Another stint for aiding attempting in a murder. Cardi B. She has a huge ass list of problematic things she's said and done. Somehow these women are role models and influencers. Edit. Being Italian does not make you a person of color. FCK. You can be a person of color and Italian. But Italian people historically don't suffer disadvantage due to their color, experience racism. I'm Italian. I can tan. I also have white privilege. George Bush war criminal. Technically Obama counts as well. A. Milline. Winnie the Pooh creator and author. Got his ideas from his son's stuffed animals. His son was horrified by the lack of privacy shown by his father and use of his real name, Christopher Robin Milline. In his father's books, Christopher was bullied unmercifully through school. His father showed total indifference to his son's plight. After college, Christopher claims that he couldn't find a job because of his childlike namesake. Yet his father pushed on. He repeatedly pleaded with his father to stop. But his dad saw dollar signs and chose to ignore his son's emotional well-being. I sneezed once and Tom Hanks only said bless you, not God bless you. Taylor Swift made a number of country albums. And everybody just acts like it never happened. Mark Wahlberg. Roman Polanski child rapist. Fled the US with support from his Hollywood friends. Lol, I'm gonna get tons of downvotes for this, but XXX Temptation. Bruce Jenner. Ran over a granny. Buckle up. Buckaroo. Kobe Bryant paid a girl. Hired private investigators who smeared her and made it look like she had sex prior to having sex with Kobe. Her life was destroyed since he is a celebrity and athlete. Everyone believed him. Kobe then admitted to the encounter was not being consensual in the eventual civil suit that followed. John Landis killed 3 people. Bojack Horseman. Extinctation beat his pregnant girlfriend blue, but everyone forgot cause he was murdered. Definitely Varg Vikernes. Seriously? This comment section is interesting. Whenever I see a post about how lovely prisons are in Norway, I see the bulk of Redditors just salivating at the idea of nice, resort-like prisons with an emphasis on rehabilitation and not punishment. Yet, here it seems like everyone is scandalized at the fact that many celebrities can continue famous and successful careers even after they serve their punishment, suggesting these people wish for a life of eternal rejection and failure over their mistakes. In the UK, Leslie Grantham, who played the character Dirty Den in popular soap opera EastEnders, was involved in a sex scandal. He showed his willy on a webcam whilst dressed as Captain Hook. During this scandal, nobody mentioned that he's also a convicted murderer, having killed a taxi driver in West Germany during a botched robbery. No one seemed to mind that he was famous and successful despite having shot a man who was just trying to earn a living. But they did mind when he flashed his knob in a pirate costume. To be fair, he shouldn't have done that either. Drake. Beto O'Rourke. Efka is a criminal. Semicolon. Edit. He was DWI then tried to flee the crash. Hillary Clinton. I don't know why you're being downvoted. It's pretty common fact that she's married to a rapist and has had lots of people killed, isn't it? That Sharap had a 12-13-year-old Anthony Kiedis while she was babysitting him. But to be fair, nobody forgot. They just never cared because this revelation has been hiding in plain sight. In both Kiedis' autobiography and on the RHCP episode of Carpool Karaoke. Ryan Reynolds did Green Lantern. Bill Murray beat his wife, threatened her repeatedly, and made a point to remind her that nobody would believe her because of his public persona. Ariana Grande licking those donuts. Everyone forgot because she made some really good songs after. I think everyone forgot the incidents because she was just licking donuts, not f***ing kids. Tim Allen got caught in an airport with 1.5 pounds of cocaine and gave up his connections, so he only did 3 years instead of life. Home Improvement hung noise. Eric Cartman set up Scott Tenorman's parents to be killed. Stole their bodies and made them into chili. He then fed the chili to Scott Tenorman, essentially tricking him into eating his own parents. People think Eric is a dick, but they don't think of him as a murderer. Amber Heard. She abused her husband Johnny Depp to such a degree that he lost part of one of his fingers, and got the world to believe that he was the abuser. I feel bad because I know I'm a nobody, but I talked mad shit about Johnny Depp until I found out he was the victim. Jim Carrey allegedly gave his ex-partner 3 STDs and then broke up with her. She committed suicide because she couldn't ever see herself being with anyone or happy with herself, as she was now stuck with these diseases for life. Her family filed a wrongful death suit against him, and last year Jim was cleared on the charges because the 2011 STD test stating the GF was clean before dating Kim was forged, meaning she had apparently contracted the diseases before meeting him. Not sure what to believe here though. He paid her off in 2013 because she was blackmailing him, saying she would go to the press. But he apparently regretted doing that. Quite a sad story. Cardi B drugged men and stole from them. People seem to forget that before Anthony Hopkins became a famous actor, he used to be a doctor and also psychopathic serial killer. If you do a Google search for a Dr. Hannibal Lecter, you will find all the info that you need to know. Scary. Caitlyn Jenner killed someone. Buckle up, Bucharus. Mark Wahlberg beat and blinded a Vietnamese guy just because he was Vietnamese. Eminem beat his wife. They both threw hands, TBF. Caitlyn Jenner killed a woman with her car while she spaced out. Kurt Cobain admitted in diaries that he sexually assaulted a disabled teenage girl when he was around the same age. Edit. Hillary Clinton. Gary Glitter, whose music still is used in movies to this day. Doesn't matter, he got caught practicing pedophilia. Brick killed a guy with a trident. No one needed to see Janet Jackson's nipple piercing. Yet. Justin Timberlake is walking the streets today as a free man. SMH. Right. I watched this interview where he said he takes half of the blame. I guess that was his version of sincerity. While Janet was banned from the Super Bowl and radios refused to play her. Ugh, FCK that guy. This guy named Donald Trump bought a full-page ad in 1989 demanding that the Central Park 5 be executed. When they were all found innocent in 2019. He claimed there were people on both sides of that one. And he didn't need to feel remorse that he demanded innocent men be killed. He did some other things too. Donald Trump. How am I first to post this? Chris Brown. He beat the daylights out of Rihanna and everyone made that excuse that she had a bad mouth. Or he was young and needs time to grow. People still make music with him now even though he's been caught stalking the mother of his child and allegations of abuse. But the guy still has a thriving career. Oliver FCKI North sold cocaine, or at least took the blame, to fight communism and now has a slot on Fox News. Newt Gingrich. Republican politician married his high school geometry teacher when he was 19 and she was 26. Had multiple affairs, and while she was in the hospital undergoing treatment for cancer he came into her hospital room and told her he was divorcing her. Friends of Gingrich report that Newt told them that she wasn't pretty enough to be the wife of a president, which he planned to be. He proceeds to divorce her, and then doesn't pay child support, and first wife has to get help from the church to make ends meet. They say first wife because he gets his divorce and in 6 months marries his second wife. But while with second wife has an affair with his staffer. During this affair, the massive hypocrite leads the impeachment proceedings of Bill Clinton for lying about an affair. Gets divorced and 4 months later marries his latest wife. He also blamed past infidelities on his passion for this country. Oh. And he is credited with driving a wedge between the parties in politics and being a leader in Christian family values. You can currently find him as a popular pundit on news programs. Everyone's celebrity hero Bill Murray allegedly beat his wife. Repeatedly. Up until his wife divorced him in 2007. Edit. Unsubstantiated legally. Ex-wife claimed. Jenny McCarthy helping to push the anti-vaccination movement. Cardi B. Walt Disney was an open anti-Semite. He didn't even try to hide it. Henry Ford was as well. And infatuated with the Nazi party. Lined his pockets with contracts from Germany. Sued the US government for destroying one of his plants, military vehicle production, in Nazi Germany, and won. Edit. It appears my accusation towards Walt Disney is questionable at best. Logan Paul going to the suicide forest in Japan and laughing at a dead guy hanging in the tree while showing the corpse. Also Logan Paul's entire body of work. Rob Schneider goes down to Home Depot and pays the migrant workers to come home and choke him. Mr. Rogers. He once. When he was younger everyone forgets that he used to. Mr. Rogers was amazing. R.I.P. gentle soul. Hillary Clinton ran a concerted campaign to smear, discredit, and harass her husband's sexual harassment and assault victims. But she was still chosen to be the Democratic presidential candidate. And I thought the left cared about victims.